Hello, friends and extended family. Um, Today, I'm not quite ready to do my next book, which is Being Adopted, The Lifelong Search for Self by David Brodzinski, Marshall Schechter, and Robin Marantz Hennig, which I am half done. Um, but the book itself, the introduction, and a few other things that have happened this week have led to this video. I noticed in the book they had discussed pronouns, which is a big thing in the world today, and they it's frustrating for me. This whole social justice warrior thing going on seems to have infiltrated adoption, and they seem to be geared towards adoptees. The social justice warriors seem to want to police the language of adoptees now, and it's kind of annoying. Adoption is a pretty sick industry. It's plagued with corruption, profiteering, borderline slavery, if not full-blown slavery. And now the social justice warriors have gotten in there. So, who are the social justice warriors? Well, people that fight for the right to be sluts. Um, you know, people who claim it's their body so they can abort indiscriminately as a form of birth control. All sorts of things that just aren't healthy for the human psyche or for anyone in general, I don't think. And anyways, the other day I had commented on a post, uh, and the post itself was interesting because it was a couple extremely, I believe the new term is extremely obese, where at one time it was morbidly obese, but to the extreme department. The largest body size you can have, which, as far as I'm concerned, in most scenarios is unhealthy. And probably in most scenarios, um, may not have to do with some sort of underlying medical condition, but has to do with poor health, um, poor nutrition, and poor eating habits. Uh, and as far as I'm concerned, that's really no different than alcoholism, drug addiction, uh, watching TV endlessly. Any sort of addictive behavior is not healthy. And luckily for us, a lot of behaviors come with some telltale signs that tell us of health. And yet we, as a society, have been trained to sort of ignore them. So growing up in my family with alcoholism, behind closed doors, it was like, oh, Auntie so-and-so is an alcoholic. But nobody ever did anything about it. Everyone knew, but politeness, or politically correctness, if you want, um, kept people from talking about it or intervening or helping people who had serious alcohol problems that affected their health and affected their lives in detrimental ways. So, anyways, I had commented on a post. It was two extremely obese people who had their child locked up in a psychiatric institution and didn't want to let him out because they were in fear for their life, this and the other thing. But it wasn't this big issue. To me, I think a lot of adoptees end up in institutions and struggling with their mental health. It's to be expected, and it should be The adoptees' mental health should be monitored closely, and there should be professional intervention at the first onset of problems, because there's going to be some problems and some questions and some topics that the average adoptive parent is not going to understand. Like I've had to delve into some depth psychology and other things just to try to understand adoption for myself and my own mental health. So, that wasn't the big thing. To me, listening to these people talk about their adopted child, and when they first met him when he was 10 years old, which was 6 years prior, that first off, he's going to be an adopted child, so there's going to be problems. They were sort of expecting that. But what they said was that the thing that attracted them to this child was his passion about baseball. Okay, so what does that tell us? The kid is passionate about a sport which involves athletics, and to play the sport, you're going to have a certain degree of athleticism, and I'm guessing physical health is probably important. So what exactly does two people who are obviously very unhealthy, morbidly or extremely obese, whatever the term may be, and I don't want to fat shame people, but this is in relation to health and the proper placement of a child to be in a healthy environment for that child. And at 10 years old, if his main interest and passion is athletics, why would you give them to two people that obviously don't have the same lifestyle, right? And if we want to look at this psychologically speaking, well, what are these people saying? They're saying that they're drawn to athleticism that's attractive to them. And why would that be? Because they know they're unhealthy. So what are they looking for exactly? An outside symbol of athleticism to juxtaposition. I'm using up words I don't understand. To go side by side with their own poor health. So, it's just like somebody who buys an exercise bike thinking, if they see an exercise bike in their house, they're going to use it. But that's not necessarily the case. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions that came up for me. And I made a statement that, I find it ironic when children are removed from their biological parents. I use the word biological parents, which is factually correct. For things like marijuana use or things like that, and then given to people who have overeating abuse. Which is unhealthier, marijuana use or overeating? Well, more people die from heart disease, I believe, and obesity related situations. Maybe you take a child away from a woman who's anorexic. That's a no-no. But to be fat or unhealthily or at an unhealthy weight is okay. It's not. It's not okay when you're trying to place a child. The child, and this is just common sense, and I'm sure I could pull up psychological reviews to back this up without issue. But a child in a smoking home, you can sit there and the parents could say not to smoke, but when they're sitting there smoking away, the child is thinking, well, it's good for you, it must be good for me. It's your actions that are the more concrete lesson than the words. Actions speak louder than words. So when your actions promote an unhealthy lifestyle, even if you're promoting one with your words, you're giving mixed signals, and the heavier signal is coming from the actions. So that was the point I was trying to get at. I was trying to go deep on this not even deep, to look at the very shallow signs that should tell us what's right and what's wrong here. And I was attacked for using the word biological parents. Well, I was then schooled that the biological birth parent source, whatever term you want to use, the proper word is parents and mother. That never changes. And that the adjectives come as adoptive mother or stepmother or da 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 da. Well, what do the adoptive mothers have to say about that? Well, they turn around and say, no, we're a real mother. We raised them. We did this. Well, again, the adoptee now is the victim, isn't it? Because who are we supposed to side with? And you're going to attack us unless we side with you? I don't think so. No. The adoptee wasn't involved in this shenanigan. If people have been doing the adoption advocacy and whatnot or over the years, and supporting birth mothers or adoptive parents' rights or this and the other thing, great. But you haven't done enough for adoption, because the poor practices are still going on. Things are actually getting worse in some scenarios. Now we have international adoption hitting the scenes. It's out of control. Now you want to change words. Well, that's a social justice technique. It stems in from feminism and postmodernism and Marxist agendas in turning things upside down. Diversity is our strength. Is it? One time I thought it was united we stand, divided we fall. But now that's not true. So changing language just points to a more malevolent agenda, in my opinion. I want to change the narrative, right? I mean, as the adoptee, well, what is adoption? Add option. That's what I am. I'm an added option. If they don't like, if the option doesn't work out the way they want, well, we can just flush them down the toilet, because where did they start out as? Illegitimate people. So if you're worried about the adjective that may be added to your title as a mother, well, unfortunately, you've made an irreversible decision, and there's going to be an adjective when the adoptee is trying to figure out your role in their life. You know, the abandoner could be that. The abandoning mother. There's adjectives. Once you stray from the path of a mother and give away your child, well, you become something different than a mother, unfortunately. And I do know in the baby scoop era that many mothers were coerced, this, that, and the other. Absolutely. Get out there and let people know that. Have your voices heard. I will amplify your voice for my channel, because that's who I'm supporting, these people. If you abandoned, gave away your child, did what you thought was the best thing for your child, that's fine. Have your voice heard. Add that to the scenario. Adoption has a rosy exterior, and it's well marketed, so why wouldn't you have thought that adoption was the best thing for your child? You may later find out it was wrong. You may later find out that you didn't have the information because other mothers didn't speak up. And that's okay. But the truth is what we're after. The truth. We're not here to protect your ego. Okay, that's what's speaking when I hear these things. You don't want to be considered something that's cast in a poor light. I'm an adoptee. I didn't have any choice. So when I say I'm adopted, what do people know? They know I was abandoned by my mother, or given away, or taken away. Any of those situations don't really speak well to my beginnings, right? It lets people know right away that I was a problem that needed a solution. And what was the solution? Well, that I should be beholden to some people who saved a poor adoptee from possibly a bad life. Possibly I was a rape baby. Possibly whatever. How do I know? All I know is I have to be raised grateful. Even if the situation I was put into wasn't better than the situation I came from. But I don't know that because the information was hidden from me. Now, the other point I want to get across is that the information I share with you via this channel is information that I've gleaned from understanding myself, from searching my feelings, from living adoption, from bouncing through the mental health system, in medicating my way through a painful life, and educating myself. Okay, I didn't join an adoption community because there wasn't one. And as far as I'm concerned, there really isn't one still that is united and moving forward in a positive direction for all adoptees. There's in-group fighting, and there's also psychological agents, let's call it that, that have been recruited by other political organizations that are involved in our discussion and are bringing in their identity politics into the situation. Whereas for adoptees, we're simply trying to regain our rights, regain our history, regain some sort of sense of self after being put into a situation which psychiatrists, doctors, politicians are in the process of trying to figure out. And the amount of contradictory information, even from these professionals, is astounding. So it's not a simple issue at all. But the point being is, when I speak, I'm going to use terms that are understandable. Okay? I'm going to try to not use terms that are offensive, but if the term biological parents offend you, well, that's too bad. Because my audience is not necessarily educated on how first mothers or birth mothers or source or whatever denomination they want to consider themselves want to be called. Some adoptive parents may be fantastic, some may be horrible. Same goes for all members of this situation. Some adoptees might be horrible people too. But at the same token, there's probably a very good reason for that. Because they had a life that was more challenging than most. They were deprived of things that the rest of the world take for granted. And they have to sit there and know that they've been deprived of these very basic rights and these very basic things that the rest of the world take for granted and don't appreciate. I appreciate family. I appreciate seeing one. I appreciate seeing one, or a mother defending its child, even though the child is clearly guilty, or whatnot. It doesn't matter. To have someone in your corner like that, wow, what a dream come true that would be. And the majority of people just think that, well, it's been normalized for them. So good for them. And I wish they got a chance in life to know what they have before it's gone. But most will never fully appreciate it because you don't know what you have till it's gone. You don't know what you're missing out on until you find it, etc., etc., etc. But at the end of the day here, I'm going to use whatever language I'm going to use. If you want to converse with me, feel free. I have no want to offend anyone. I do want to open up some eyes. I do want to open up discussion. Um, I do want people to understand that when someone says they're adopted, they are literally saying that they lost their entire family in one day. They lost their entire family in one day. Okay? And when they go to possibly do a reunion, they may lose another family in one day. They may lose the same family again. The amount of loss that's possible with adoption for the adoptee is astounding and incredible. And the entire journey is fraught with pitfalls. And for the adoptee, there is no going back to the people who started it all and saying, what the fuck? Because once they drop you off, they disappear. Close up shop. It's like they don't exist anymore. So anyway, to my viewers, my friends, my extended family, my new friends, my new subscribers, just know that, yeah, I'm not part of some international adoption group. I don't spend all my time networking with them, although I'd love to know more adoptees and more and get different perspectives and hear your stories, your hopes, your dreams, your triumphs, your challenges, your nightmares. But I'm not changing my language for anyone out there. I'm going to use the terms that are recognizable and the best I can utilize at the time. I'm not looking to change my vocabulary. I'm looking to change the narrative of thinking adoption is wonderful to that adoption is someone losing their entire family in one day. Okay, because that's where it starts. And that needs to be the first thing we think of when we think of adoption so that we can quit propagating disconnected, lost souls. Anyways, that's sort of what the gist of what I had to say today. But hopefully you folks understand where I'm coming from. And I'm sorry if you don't like your role as a birth mother, but I still believe that the adoptee is the person that needs to be put first in this, and whatever language they feel comfortable using will be the language for the adoptees. Okay?